Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Always ready for a deep dive.
Okay, cool. So today we're going to be tackling The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan.
Ooh, good one.
So this book is all about achieving extraordinary results. And I think we're all looking for that, right? Especially in today's world where it feels like
Right.
everything's coming at you a mile a minute.
Yeah. Mile a minute.
So much to do, so little time.
Yeah.
And this book, The One Thing, it kind of offers a refreshingly simple approach to just kind of cut through all that noise and focus on what really matters.
Yeah, I think what's really great about it is that it starts by kind of debunking these common myths about success.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they call them the lies of success,
Yeah.
things that we often tell ourselves that actually hold us back.
Interesting. What are some of those?
Well, one of the first ones they tackle is this idea that everything matters equally, which, on the surface, it sounds logical, right?
Yeah, you want to give equal weight to everything you're doing.
Right. But in reality, some things just matter more than others.
Oh, absolutely. It's like that 80-20 principle, right? Like 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that one client project that brings in the bulk of your income, or that one marketing strategy that just takes off.
Exactly. And the one thing really dives deep into this 80-20 principle, helping you figure out, how to identify and leverage that crucial 20%
Okay.
in any area of your life.
Okay, so what else?
Well, another one is this myth of multitasking.
Oh, multitasking.
We're like a badge of honor, right?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, I can multitask.
No, I'm amazing at it.
Yeah. But the reality is, according to the book, and I think experience shows this, that it's actually a productivity killer.
Yeah.
Our brains just aren't wired to focus on multiple things effectively at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to think I was such a great multitasker, but then I realized that I would make silly mistakes.
Yes.
I'd feel so frazzled and just ultimately get less done.
And it takes longer.
Yeah, it does.
It takes way longer. They even cite studies that show that multitasking can actually decrease your IQ by up to 15 points.
No way.
It's like we're voluntarily dumbing ourselves down.
It's true. So what they're saying is we should just single task.
Single task.
Yeah.
Focus on one thing, give it your full attention, knock it out, and then move on to the next thing.
Okay, so that's 2 lies busted. What's another one?
So another one is this idea that in order to be successful, you have to live a disciplined life.
Okay.
Like
Like a super discipline.
Yeah. Super disciplined.
Like waking up at 5 a.m., working out,
Yeah, you gotta,
meditating.
meditating, eating your kale smoothies,
Yeah.
just being on all the time.
Like a robot.
Yeah.
I mean, who can do that?
Yeah, and who wants to do that?
Right. It just
Sounds
sounds
exhausting.
exhausting.
And the one thing actually acknowledges that. And they argue that, it's not about being disciplined all the time. It's about building the right habits.
Okay.
Right? So it's like they say in the book, success is about doing the right thing, not about doing everything right.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So it's not about being, this superhero of self-control.
Yeah.
It's about, being strategic,
Right.
about creating habits that support your one thing.
And it's interesting because they talk about research on how long it takes to form a new habit.
Mm-hmm.
And on average, they say it takes about 66 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's not about, being disciplined 24/7.
Yeah.
It's just about putting in that focus for a certain amount of time
Yeah.
until that behavior becomes automatic.
Right. Think about it this way, like brushing your teeth. You don't even think about that anymore. It's just automatic.
Yeah.
Showering. All those things become automatic. So we want to create those automatic behaviors that support our one thing so we can free up our mental energy for other things.
Okay, that makes sense. What about willpower? I feel like willpower is kind of tied into that whole discipline thing.
Right. And they actually debunk this myth of willpower being on will call.
On will call.
Yeah, like you can just summon it up whenever you need it.
Oh, I wish.
Right.
It doesn't work that way for me.
No, it's more like a muscle, right? You use it too much, it gets tired.
Absolutely.
And the one thing emphasizes that. And you know that famous marshmallow test
Oh, yeah?
where they put the marshmallow in front of the kid and
They're like, if you wait.
yeah, you can have two.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that the kids who could delay gratification, who could exercise that willpower muscle, they went on to have greater success later in life. But what's important to remember is that willpower is not limitless.
Right?
It's a resource that needs to be managed.
Like your energy levels.
Yes, exactly. Like your energy levels.
You only have so much.
You only have so much. So they give a few tips
Okay.
on how to manage that. One, Tackle your most important task, your one thing, early in the day. Okay.
When your willpower is at its peak.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. So if you can block off at least 4 hours, they say, first thing in the morning to work on your one thing.
4 hours.
At least.
That seems like a lot.
It does, but think about how much you could get done.
That's true. And you wouldn't be distracted by all the little things that come up during the day.
Exactly. You're focused, you have the most energy, and you can really knock it out.
Yeah.
The other thing is fuel your brain with healthy foods.
Okay.
Because willpower depletion is actually linked to blood sugar levels.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why when you're hangry,
Yes.
you have no willpower.
Your willpower goes out the window.
Okay, so eat good food and work on your one thing first thing in the morning.
Exactly.
Okay.
So another big myth they tackle is the myth of a balanced life.
Oh, the balanced life.
Yeah.
Work-life balance.
Yeah. The perfect, harmony between your work and your family, your personal time, your hobbies, everything, right? That's the dream. But I feel like it's always elusive.
Yes. And the one thing agrees with that. They say that the pursuit of perfect balance is actually a myth.
Oh, really?
And instead they suggest counterbalance.
Counterbalance.
So it's more about being fully present and focused on one area for a period of time,
Right.
and then shifting your focus to another area.
Okay, so it's not about doing it all at the same time.
Exactly.
It's about strategically shifting.
Strategically shifting your focus.
Okay.
And they tell this kind of heartbreaking story about a man who worked tirelessly, always promising his family, someday we'll do this, someday we'll spend more time together, and that someday never came.
Oh, wow.
So it's a reminder that we can't put our lives on hold until someday. We have to make conscious choices in the present.
Yeah, it's not about balance. It's about being intentional
Intentional, exactly.
about your choices.
Yeah, okay. And then the final lie they debunk is big is bad.
Big is bad.
Yeah, it's that fear that, success, achieving big goals will somehow lead to overwhelm and stress and unhappiness.
Yeah, you'll be successful but miserable.
Exactly.
So,
But the one thing encourages us to think bigger.
okay.
Embrace the possibility of extraordinary results. They argue that big goals don't have to be overwhelming. In fact, they can be incredibly inspiring. It's about breaking down those big goals into smaller, manageable steps. They use the analogy of a domino effect. You know that one small domino can topple a much larger domino,
Oh, yeah.
creating this chain reaction that leads to a massive outcome. So even small actions, when they're focused and consistent, can lead to extraordinary results.
Yeah, you just have to focus on that first domino.
That first domino.
The one thing that sets everything else in motion.
Exactly. And they give an inspiring example of this guy, Sabir Bhatia. He arrived in America with just $250 in his pocket.
Wow.
But he went on to create Hotmail, which he sold to Microsoft for $400 million.
What?
Yeah. And his mentor attributed his success to his ability to think big.
Okay, so it's not about being afraid of those big goals.
Yeah.
It's about breaking them down
Yes.
and just taking those consistent actions.
Exactly. And the one thing, it's not just about achieving, financial success or career goals. It's about applying these principles to any area of your life.
Oh.
Your relationships, your health, your personal growth,
That's great.
anything that matters to you. It's about asking yourself, what's that one thing that would make the biggest difference in this area of my life?
Okay, so to recap, we've debunked 6 lies. Everything matters equally. Multitasking.
Yes.
A disciplined life.
Yes.
Willpower is always on will call.
Always.
A balanced life, and big is bad.
Yes. Exactly.
So now that we've cleared the path, I'm really curious to learn about those practical tools, the how-tos that the one thing offers.
Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. All right, so now we're ready to get into the nitty-gritty. How do we actually find our one thing?
Well, the one thing introduces this really cool tool called the focusing question.
The focusing question.
Yeah, it's like this laser beam that helps you cut through all the clutter and pinpoint the most important action to take.
Okay, I like that. A laser beam. So how does that work?
So imagine this. It's 1885, and you're in a room with Andrew Carnegie,
Oh, wow.
one of the wealthiest men in history, right?
Yeah.
He's giving this speech to a group of students, and he shares this really bold piece of advice. He says, put all your eggs in one basket, and then watch that basket.
Whoa, that's kind of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
We're always told to diversify, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
I know, but Carnegie, he was a master of focus, and he believed in concentrating your efforts in the area where you could make the biggest impact. And that's what the focusing question helps you figure out. It's like, which basket deserves your undivided attention?
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how do we actually use this focusing question?
It's actually pretty simple. You start by identifying the area of your life that you want to focus on. So is it your career? Is it your relationships, health,
Hmm.
finances, whatever it is?
Okay, so let's say I'm feeling stuck in my career. So my focusing question could be, what's the one thing I can do this month to move my career forward?
You got it. And you can even make it more powerful by adding what they call the such that clause. So what's the one thing I can do this month to move my career forward such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
Oh, such that, okay, so that really kind of like narrows it down.
Exactly. It forces you to think about the domino effect, like what action will create the biggest ripple.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And they share some really cool stories in the book about how this question has led to breakthroughs for people. Like there was this company that was brainstorming ideas for a new product, and they used this question. And one little idea that was worth about $100 of investment ended up generating billions of dollars in revenue.
Whoa, no way. So they just stumbled upon this billion-dollar idea just by asking the right question.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So now I want to know, how can I, as a listener, use the focusing question in my own life?
Well, the book suggests starting with a mind map. So, like, list all the areas of your life that are important to you, career, relationships, health, finances, hobbies, personal growth, whatever matters to you.
It's kind of like creating a visual overview of your life.
Yeah, like a map of where you want to go.
Okay.
And then for each of those areas, you write out the focusing question. So make it specific to that area in a certain time frame. Like if it's your health, it could be, what's the one thing I can do this week to improve my fitness, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary.
So it's all about getting super laser focused on that one action for each area of your life.
Exactly. That's the power of the focusing question.
Okay, so now we've identified our one thing.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do we actually make time for it? Life is so busy, there's always something vying for our attention.
That's where time blocking comes in.
Time blocking.
It's not just about finding the time, it's about making the time. It's about scheduling an appointment with yourself to work on your one thing.
An appointment with yourself. I like that.
Yeah,
So you're treating it as important as like a meeting or a doctor's appointment.
exactly. And they recommend doing it first thing in the morning
Okay.
when you have the most willpower, the most energy. So block off at least 4 hours.
4 hours. That's a big chunk.
It is, but if you think about it, like, you can get so much done.
That's true.
And they actually share this anecdote about Stephen King,
Oh, okay.
the horror writer.
Yeah.
And his writing schedule is pretty clear-cut. Mornings are for new writing. Afternoons, he takes a nap, maybe writes some letters. Evenings are for reading, family time, and revisions.
Wow. So he really sticks to that schedule.
Yeah, very consistent. And obviously, he's one of the most successful authors of all time. So clearly, it's working.
Yeah. I mean, protecting those hours for your one thing, it seems like that could pay off big time in the long run.
Absolutely. But,
Yeah.
it's not enough just to block off the time. You got to make sure those hours are productive. And the one thing talks about 3 commitments that are essential for making that happen.
3 commitments. Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is the commitment to mastery.
Mastery. Okay.
Yeah. It's about embracing the journey of becoming your best and understanding that mastery is not a destination, it's a process. It's continuous learning and practice and refinement.
So it's like always striving to be better.
Always getting better. And they mention that, elite performers, whether it's in music, sports, business, they dedicate thousands of hours to honing their craft. And they bring up the 10,000-hour rule.
Oh, yeah. Like 10 years to become an expert.
Exactly. 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to achieve mastery in any field.
So you got to put in the time.
You got to put in the time.
There are no shortcuts.
No shortcuts to success. And that ties into the second commitment, which is finding the best ways to do things. So we all have our natural talents and abilities. But to really achieve breakthroughs, we have to be open to learning new skills, systems, strategies, all of that.
So it's not just about working hard.
It's about working smarter.
Working smarter, yeah.
Yeah. And they talk about shifting from an E, which is like an entrepreneurial approach, to a P, which is a purposeful approach. So the E is like all about diving in, like with enthusiasm, relying on your natural abilities. But eventually you kind of hit a ceiling.
Right.
And that's when the P approach comes in. That's when you start seeking out better ways to do things.
Yeah, you've got to be intentional.
Intentional and strategic.
Okay, so that's mastery and finding better ways. What's the third commitment?
The third commitment is accountability.
Accountability. Okay.
Yeah, it's about taking ownership of your outcomes, being responsible for your results, no excuses. And one of the best ways to do that is to find an accountability partner.
Oh, like somebody to keep you on track.
Yeah, somebody to support you, to challenge you, to help you stay focused. And they even cite research that shows that people who write down their goals and share their progress with others, they're significantly more likely to achieve them.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's like having somebody in your corner
Exactly.
to cheer you on.
Yes, to cheer you on and keep you accountable. Okay, so we've got the focusing question, we've got time blocking, and we've got those three commitments: mastery, finding better ways, and accountability. It's like we're building this amazing foundation for success, but let's be real, there are always obstacles that can kind of get in the way.
Totally. And the one thing calls these the four thieves of productivity.
The four thieves. Okay, now you have to tell me about these thieves. What are they? How do they steal our productivity?
Okay, thief number one, and this is probably the most common one, is the inability to say no.
Oh, yeah.
It's that feeling of being pulled in the million different directions.
Yes.
Like everybody wants a piece of you.
And you want to help everyone. Exactly. And you want to please everyone, but then you end up spreading yourself way too thin.
And nothing gets done well.
Right, exactly. And the one thing, they actually have this great example of how to say no, and it comes from Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah. So he was notorious for being incredibly selective about what he said yes to. In fact, when he returned to Apple in 1997, he actually slashed their product line from 350 products down to just 10.
Whoa, okay, so he's all about minimizing and focusing.
Exactly.
Get rid of the fluff.
Exactly. And look what happened. Apple became like this powerhouse of innovation because they were so focused on just a few incredible products.
So saying no can be a really good thing.
It can be a very good thing. Say no to the good so you can say yes to the great.
I love that. Okay, so what's the second thief?
Thief number 2 is the fear of chaos.
The fear of chaos.
Yeah. Now, most of us like a certain level of order and control in our lives, right?
Okay.
But when you really commit to focusing on your one thing, it means that other things are going to get left undone. And for those of us who are like very organized, very type A, that can be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like this nagging feeling that if I'm not doing everything, then everything's going to float apart.
Exactly. But the one thing really encourages us to kind of reframe our relationship with chaos and to accept that a certain level of messiness is actually okay. It's a natural byproduct of focusing on what matters most.
So it's like, don't be afraid to let some things slide.
Yeah, some things gotta slide. And they even offer some really practical tips for managing this chaos.
Oh, okay.
Like accepting good enough for certain tasks.
Good enough. Okay.
Delegate when possible, or even just embrace the fact that some things might slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of that need for perfection.
Yeah, and trusting that by focusing on the one thing, you're actually creating more value in the long run.
Exactly. Okay, so we got no bra and chaos under control. Thief number 3 is poor health habits.
Oh, okay. Poor health habits.
Yeah, so we all know that things like lack of sleep, unhealthy eating, not enough exercise, all of those things can have a huge impact on our energy levels and productivity.
Oh, absolutely. I know when I'm running on like fumes and junk food, I can't focus on anything,
Exactly. It's impossible.
let alone my one thing.
Yeah. And the one thing emphasizes that our physical health is directly linked to our mental capacity,
Right.
including willpower. And remember how we talked about willpower?
Yeah, it's like a muscle.
Yeah, it's like a muscle, and it needs fuel and rest to function properly.
So basically, take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself.
Eat well, sleep, exercise.
Exactly. All those things will help your willpower. And they even point out that willpower depletion is linked to blood sugar levels.
Oh, interesting. So that's why when you're like starving and your blood sugar's low,
Yes.
your willpower just goes out the window.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got to fuel our bodies with good food, get enough sleep and exercise and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Okay, what's the fourth thief?
The fourth thief is an unsupportive environment.
Unsupportive environment. Okay.
Oh, this includes the people we surround ourselves with and our physical surroundings.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. We've all experienced how draining it can be to be around negative people, people who doubt your ambitions, who criticize you all the time.
Yeah, it's like they suck the energy right out of you.
Exactly. And on the flip side, being around people who are supportive and inspiring can be so motivating.
Yeah, you feed off that positive energy.
Exactly. And they actually cite research from this book, Connected,
Okay.
that highlights how much our social networks influence our habits.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, if one of your close friends becomes obese, you're 57% more likely to become obese as well.
What? That's crazy.
I know. So it really shows how much our environment shapes our behavior.
Wow.
So yeah, The one thing really encourages us to be mindful of who we spend time with and to surround ourselves with people who believe in our goals and inspire us.
So choose your friends wisely.
Yeah. Choose your friends wisely. And they also talk about the importance of our physical environment.
Okay, so like where you work and live.
Exactly. Do you have a dedicated workspace that's free from distractions? Is it organized? Are you surrounded by things that inspire and motivate you?
Oh, my workspace is a disaster. I'm looking around right now and it's just clutter everywhere. No wonder I can't focus.
Yeah. So think about like how you can design your environment to really support your one thing,
Okay.
make it easier to focus and get things done.
All right, so let's recap those four thieves. The inability to say no,
Yes.
fear of chaos,
Yes.
poor health habits,
Yes.
and an unsupportive environment.
Exactly. And now that we've identified them, we can take steps to kind of mitigate them and protect our time and energy.
I love it. So we've got all the pieces in place. We're ready to rock and roll.
Hmm.
But is there anything else that we should keep in mind on this journey of achieving extraordinary results?
Well, the one thing reminds us that this is a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly challenging ourselves to learn, to grow, to strive for our best.
Okay, you've got to tell me. What's the secret to unlocking our full potential?
Well, throughout the book, they have this idea of like connecting your someday goals to what you're doing today,
Okay.
creating this like chain of actions that lead to the big picture.
Okay, so it's like bridging the gap between where you are now and like where you want to be.
Exactly. And they tell this great anecdote about a father and son who are putting together a world map puzzle.
Okay.
And at first, they're totally overwhelmed, like there are all these pieces everywhere.
Right.
But then they flip the pieces over, and there it is, the completed picture.
Uh-huh.
And it's like that with our goals. Sometimes we get so focused on the individual pieces
Yeah.
that we forget to look at the big picture.
Right. We don't see where we're going.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we connect those pieces?
They call this process goal setting to the now.
Okay. Goal setting to the now. I like that.
So you start with your someday goal. That's like your big dream, the
Got it.
thing you want to achieve like way out there in the future.
Right.
And then you break it down. So you work backwards from your someday goal to your 5-year goal, your 1-year goal, your monthly goal, your weekly goal, and then your daily goal.
So it's like you're reverse engineering your dream.
Yes.
You're creating that roadmap.
Exactly. And
What?
at each stage, you can use the focusing question again.
Okay.
So like, what's the one thing I can do this week to get me closer to my monthly goal? You know?
So it's like those daily actions are like the building blocks
Yes.
for the bigger picture.
Exactly. It creates that chain reaction.
I'm loving this. This is so actionable.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so we've got our goal set. We know our one thing. We're time blocking. We've got those 3 commitments, and we're watching out for those productivity thieves.
Mm.
Is there anything else we should know as we set out on this journey?
I think the most important thing is to remember that it's a journey. It's not just about achieving that one thing. It's about who you become along the way.
It's about the growth.
Exactly.
So even if you don't achieve that big goal right away, you've still learned so much and grown so much.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this has been such an insightful deep dive into the one thing. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for achieving my goals.
Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Of course, my pleasure.
And to our listeners, remember, success is not about doing everything right. It's about doing the right thing. So get out there, find your one thing, and make it happen. Thanks for listening.